fellow senators, Ted Cruz, said this, quote, the biggest obstacle to passing common sense immigration reform is President Barack Obama. A path to citizenship is the most divisive aspect of this bill, and the White House is insisting on it, end quote. What would you say to Ted Cruz?
Well, I think he has Obamaphobia.
Obamaphobia. That is one I haven't yet heard. But that was Senator Bob Menendez on MSNBC accusing Texas Senator Ted Cruz of having it. I've heard of Bush derangement syndrome, but I've never heard of Obamaphobia. Maybe Susan Ferrechio, chief congressional correspondent, Washington Examiner, has heard of it. Hey, Susan.
Hey, how you doing, Steve?
Good. Have you ever heard of Obamaphobia before Bob Menendez came up with it?
You know what? I may have heard that tossed around a little bit just on Twitter or whatnot, but I don't think I've ever heard it described that way by a U.S. senator.
By the way, there's a tornado warning for Northwest D.C. if I'm seeing what I'm seeing correctly. So I hope you're not in the path.
Me too.
Okay, good. All right, so before we get to immigration, I just had Congressman Sensenbrenner on. He's not backing down at all. He says more and more Republicans are coming up to him and thanking him for the stand he's taking. Of course, the man who introduced the Patriot Act in '01 on the floor of the House has a lot of problems with this. He says he sticks by his statement that the Obama administration's full of bunk when they say nobody has to worry. And he also says that this was not in the Patriot Act, any of this stuff, and he's going to pursue this. And he has more Republicans every day coming to him saying, you know, I'm with you. So what's your read on this?
It's really funny, isn't it? It's just that the politics of this are all over the map. I mean, you have Republicans defending it, Republicans, you know, condemning it, and you see Democrats worried about it, and then Democrats defending it because they're trying to defend the Obama administration. The thing is, I think you have really people on Capitol Hill right now not really quite sure where this thing is going. And first of all, it's hard for us to say what they knew and didn't know because it's classified. Certain members of Congress have regular briefings and access to this while others don't. And there's Obama saying people were invited to know about this and maybe they didn't take the opportunity to learn about it. So it's hard, you know, as a reporter for me to declare, yes, the information was out there and they didn't know. Because someone like Sensenbrenner, who is a co-author of the Patriot Act, longtime member of the Judiciary Committee, he's really kind of a trusted voice on this matter. And he's saying, no, this wasn't part of the bill. This wasn't what we intended it to be.
Right.
And then you have, you know, this whole discrepancy over, you know, the collection of material. Does that mean we've really, you know, just because we've collected it, does it mean we're really looking at it? This is big area. There's a lot of vagueness here. And I think there's a lot of worry. People didn't realize this, you know, at the very least. People didn't realize this was going on.
Yeah, no.
And and it's going to renew the effort right now to really kind of rein in the Patriot Act. Every time it comes up for renewal, members of Congress are talking about either blocking it or finding ways to rein it in. And you find that across the aisle here in Congress. So I think there's a real possibility here that in the future we're going to have, at the very least, close scrutiny at who gets this information and what kind of information they're getting.
There was a report today that magnified the fact that the FBI hasn't been allowed in a mosque since 2010, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe 2011, and that the surveillance does not include mosques. And Congressman Sensenbrenner said, well, it certainly does include institutions or you know, congregations of other faiths, synagogues, churches, and he thought that it was outrageous. It's a violation of the Constitution and doesn't make sense police-wise or surveillance-wise to give special protection to mosques.
That would, you know, if that is the case, that seems really strange to me. That, you know, especially because the Patriot Act was born out of an attack on the United States by Islamic extremists. That, you know, the United States wouldn't be monitoring what's going on, you know, equally everywhere, and that they would be excluding anybody, in particular, people, you who may be harboring these feelings within the Muslim community. There certainly has been evidence of that. Look what just happened on Patriot Day in Massachusetts. There were people who were considered Islamic extremists involved in that. So it does seem kind of ludicrous that that is the case. That can be confirmed.
Yeah.
That's what was happening. Of course, we don't really know all this stuff. The thing is, this has produced a lot of information at once swirling around, and I think it's going to be a while before this is really sorted out. My hope is that we and the public get to know what's really happening here. I think there's just a lot of concern right now and a lot of confusion, for sure, about what is being collected and from whom it's being collected. People are worried. People are talking about this all the time now. If you go on social media, you see people talking about it constantly.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What was being monitored.
Absolutely. We're talking to Susan Ferrechio, our friend, the chief congressional correspondent of the Washington Examiner here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Let's move over to immigration reform. You talk about confusion and all over the place. I may be wrong, and I probably am, but the impression I get is that it's total confusion and all over the place in the Senate. I mean, now we have an amendment that would enhance border security. Harry Reid doesn't let it get a vote. Now, I don't know how Republicans are going to react to that. You got Schumer saying it's definitely going to pass by July, but they want 70 votes. So, I mean, where are we in the Senate with this? And the Leahy amendment, I don't know if that's even going to be brought up, but that's never going to pass as far as the rights for homosexual immigrants. And I think the Republicans will always be blamed for that, even if they do pass immigration reform. So where are we in the Senate?
Well, you put it really perfectly. It's very confusing right now. There's a lot in flux. And a lot of what you're hearing is kind of noise. It's noise aimed at influencing the outcome, okay? When Democrats say they've got it locked up, that's not really true. They may be saying that just to kind of sway. Things work on Capitol Hill by just trying to sway people. And that can help sway them by saying, hey, look, we got it locked up. There's a lot of confusion. The amendment that was tabled today would have created a trigger for border security. It would have brought in more Republican support because Republicans in the Senate are particularly concerned that the border security elements in this bill are weak. However, Democrats who really prize the path to citizenship believe the trigger amendment would block that event ultimately. And so for them, it was a deal killer. And so that amendment was tabled. And one of the people who helped table the amendment was Marco Rubio.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, his support is critical. You've got it. Marco Rubio is really kind of the linchpin here in this whole process in the Senate. If he walks away from this bill, or if he does something that's not expected, like say if he if he helped keep that amendment alive, for instance, the whole thing could collapse. He's really trying to hold this thing together, even though I know there are parts of it he doesn't like, and even though he probably would support something like what the Grassley Amendment was about today, he did say afterward that he basically, the gist of what he said afterward when the amendment was tabled was that if I don't, this is going to be far more, if we don't support this now, this deal is going to fall apart. And then he called that de facto amnesty because people living here illegally would just keep living here illegally. So that's where things ended up in the Senate. And we still don't know. This process is going to go on for a while in the Senate. We're going to have amendments. We're going to have debate. And the thing is going to kind of shift around, and we'll see support build, I think. Ultimately, it will probably pass. The question is, will it pass by enough to put a lot of pressure on the House? And will the House, because of it, put forward something that's in a comprehensive way, the way the Senate has? Or will they stick to their own process, which is basically passing pieces of legislation that don't really look much at all like the Senate bill?
Well, I'm afraid, because I don't want to see this pass, and I've heard this from Louis Gohmert yesterday, told us that, Boehner has not given any assurance that he will not present after it comes out of conference, if there is a conference bill, or if, I'm sorry, it's the Senate bill coming to the floor of the House. He's not sure that Boehner won't let the Senate bill, come to the floor of the House, basically, to be voted on. He hasn't given that assurance that even if the Republicans don't support it, he might let it come for a vote. I mean, I don't trust Boehner on this at all.
some Republicans tell me that they don't believe he will bring such a bill to the floor. But then I hear rumblings that they're trying to build support for that kind of thing. So I'm not sure myself. I have heard from people who claim to know him well that they don't think that this will happen. They don't think he'll go that far as path to citizenship. So, I'm leaning a no on Boehner, but I could be convinced otherwise based on some of the things I've been hearing that maybe he's, is trying to feel out whether he could get enough support for that. Will he pass it with all Democrats and like 3 Republicans? I don't think he would go that far.
Right.
But something else? Is he looking for something in the middle? Probably.
Well, I'm sorry.
Democrats are afraid. The Democrats are really afraid. And what they're afraid of is, Republicans, are afraid. And we all know what they're afraid of, and that's, they're afraid of 2012 even worse. They got 27% of the vote of Republican support then, and they're afraid they'll get 2% next time.
Well,
it's a big issue for them.
Well, they're wrong. I think they're wrong because, like I said, no matter how far they go, you're going to have this amendment and that amendment, like the Leahy Amendment and others that were not going to be included, that were going to be taken out, and it's going to be watered down, quote unquote. And even if after it's passed, once the signing ceremony's over or once the president signs it and takes to the microphone, he'll talk about how it's a great start, but it didn't go far enough, and he'll blame the Republicans, and the Republicans will be the bad guys again. And if they don't understand this, then I don't know what they're looking at. But what's with Kelly Ayotte? What made her? She really, in her explanation of why she's decided to support this 1,000-page bill, obviously has no idea what's in it, and she's coming off looking really bad.
Well, she's from New Hampshire, not Utah. She's a New England Republican, and while New Hampshire has many conservatives, it also has many moderate Republicans. And Kelly Ayotte is not really considered it's hard to survive in New England unless you kind of skew moderate. And so I was not even remotely surprised when she jumped on board with this. I think you'll see more people. And again, does she not quite understand what's in it? The bill is more than 800 pages long. So a lot of people really don't know what's in it or get every little detail. And yeah, she made it sound like she she wasn't quite sure of what was going on within the bill. That's true. She did.
That it was just the right thing to do. Let me ask you one more, Susan. And what about this State Department scandal that the media? CBS News broke it. Chuck Todd did a story on it. CBS News went back to it, but I think ABC has remained silent on it. Certainly, it's been buried. Certainly, if this was the Republican favorite to get the nomination in 2016, and there was any kind of similar scandal, the way we're hearing things about Hillary Clinton's State Department, it would be all over the news. They're doing their best to hide this.
What's really interesting about the story, I think, is the way Hillary Clinton manages to, she's been very sort of Teflon about this, and nothing is sticking with her. People aren't saying, hey, wait a minute, what did you do about this? And she's not being tied to it. People are, I know some people are trying to tie it to it, but she seems to be unscathed by this and by Benghazi and other things. And
well, Susan, after all, she's on Twitter. So, oh, my God. A 26-paragraph story in the New York Times. How could you talk about anything else if she's on Twitter?
Well, part of it, too, is that there's just been a string of these scandals, and it's kind of head-spinning. People are just like, whoa, now over here, now over here, now over here. That's part of it, too. We're in this 24-hour news cycle. Everything is happening so quickly. I think while it's easier to get picked up in these scandals, it's also easier to put them in the rearview mirror because something else comes along and takes its place the next day. And that's partly what's going on here, I think.
I guess I would like to see. You're right. Your head spins. We talk about it. I don't know how you decide what scandal to cover, what story to cover, because think of what, Susan. Think of in the last month since we found out about the IRS and the Justice Department scandal with going after the AP. That was a 1-2 punch on the heels of the Benghazi hearings that took place 2 days prior. And since then, it has been non-stop revelation after revelation after revelation.
really been a lot, and it is kind of it is, you know, what to choose from every day when you're looking at it, and partly it's part of the problem too, because you don't have a chance to really dig in because you have to immediately switch to another topic.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that's helped. You know, people aren't even talking about the IRS today, and that scandal was so huge a week ago. So.
I know. Well, we can't let that one go either. All right, Susan, as